which have been previously circulated and obviously which you're all aware of now. Your microphones should be switched to mute unless you're speaking. Should you wish to ask a question or make a comment, can you please indicate either by the chat function or by raising your electronic hand via Teams? And also for today, I'll assume that you've read the paperwork before us prior to the meeting, although I understand people have had some IT issues as well. Please only use the chat function to indicate if you wish to speak as an alternative to the electronic hand or to raise any technical issues. And I say when asking a question, if you can, please indicate which page number you're referring to. First item on the agenda is to do a roll call. I'm Councillor Mike Harvey, the chair, and I am present. And I now call on Charlotte from the Democratic Services team to take the roll call. Charlotte, please.
Yeah, so Councillor Cypher Harmon.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Sharon Freegard.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Nigel Hunt.
Charlotte, he's having difficulties joining, so he's sent his apologies.
Thanks, Jane. Thank you for letting me know. Councillor Steve Hunt.
I'm here, Charlotte.
Councillor Dennis Keogh.
Yes, Charlotte, I'm here. Thank you.
Councillor Simon Niall.
Here, thank you.
Councillor Alan Llewellyn.
Yes, just my personal, thank you.
Councillor Sandra Miller.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Rydian Maisen.
Yes, I'm here, Charlotte.
Councillor Del Morgan.
Present all.
Councillor Suzanne Patterson.
Present.
Councillor Lynette Purcell.
Present.
Councillor Sheila Penry. I think she was having difficulties as well outside the meeting.
Yeah, she's apologies as well, Char.
Thank you. Councillor Sonia Reynolds.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Arwyn Wilcock.
Present all.
Thank you. And if I just move to Cabinet members now, Councillor Rob Jones.
Yes, I'm here, Charlotte. Can you note Councillor Latham's apologies? He's got problems with his central heating at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Carol Clement Williams.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Doreen Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Alan Lockyer.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Peter Rees.
Present, Charlotte.
Peter Richards.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Annette Wingrave.
Present, Charlotte.
Councillor Leanne Jones.
Present, Charlotte.
Thank you. And then on to officers, Karen Jones.
Present.
Howell Jenkins.
Present.
Aled Evans.
Present.
Hugh Jarrett.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Nicola Pierce.
Present, Charlotte. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Craig Griffiths.
Present, Charlotte.
Hugh Jones.
Yes, I'm here, Charlotte.
Angela Thomas. Robert Davis.
Yeah, present, Charlotte.
Jane Woodman Ralph.
Present.
Chloe Plowman.
Present.
Are there any officers I've missed? No. Chair, I think that's everyone.
Leader, you got your hand up?
Yeah, it was just before you start the meeting, Chair, to best wishes to Councillor Del Morgan. He's had an accident and is in plaster. I have spoken to him, but I've noticed that he's in the meeting today, so well done, Del. Hobbling on one leg, shall we say, but you don't have to hobble far to get to the computer, so I just wanted committee to be aware.
That's very kind. Thanks, thanks, Rob. Thank you.
Best wishes from us all, Del, and hopefully speedy recovery on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we go to declarations, I want to highlight to the public and members that Scrutiny have chosen to scrutinise items 3, 6 and 10 on the Cabinet papers. And obviously that leads us into declarations of interest, item 2. Do we have any declarations in relation to the items that I've just mentioned, please? No, I don't see any indications. Okay, item 3 pre-decision scrutiny to select appropriate items from the Cabinet agenda for pre-decision scrutiny. And as I've said, the items we've chosen to scrutinise, items 3, 6 and 10 on the Cabinet papers. So we go to the Cabinet papers and straight to item 3, which is the Revenue Budget Update and Monitoring Report 2020-2021. Unless any officers got anything to add, we'll go straight to questions. Councillor Lynette Purcell, please, and you've got a number of questions.
Thank you. I'll ask all my questions all at once, but they are, I think, to different officers. The first one, and apologies for my speed in going through these papers, but like so many other councillors, we have real problems accessing the papers. But on page 7, it talks about the arts venues, and whereas I'm welcoming very much the 424,000 input, hang on, let me just find it. Where's it gone? Yeah, Welsh Government have funded 424k for loss of income. I just wondered how that 424k had been utilised. I'm assuming it's mainly for the furloughing of staff, but I'd really like just a bit more detail on that. But then we come to page 8, where we've got the residential care 385k overspend. Now, this is to do with residential placements for children at risk, which we know that due to COVID, there's been an increase in domestic violence. But I just wondered, are we anticipating that, sadly, this need will increase still further for more residential care placements, because COVID hasn't gone away at the moment. On page 9, in the last paragraph, the last sentence, it talks about increasing the hourly rate paid by £1 an hour to providers of domiciliary care. I'm assuming this means external providers, but it's not absolutely clear in that sentence. And then page 11, yeah, let me just find it and catch up with myself. Yeah, in communication and marketing, I mean, we all know that COVID-19 required us to place many visible notices to remind the public as to what was going on. It's disappointing that the Welsh Government has only funded 25% of these costs to us, which I think links in with page 20, bullet point 31 in the recommendations, when it says the Council is to seek additional funding from Welsh Government to cover COVID-19 consequences that impact on council funding and activity. But I think we also need to make clear that this is also impacting eventually on council taxpayers, and therefore I'd fully support this. That's basically a comment, but I'd like answers to the other questions, please.
Okay, thanks for that.
Shall I come in, Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll take them as the points raised by Councillor Purcell. Page 7 around the arts venue. Basically, we have budgeted for loss of income. We have budgeted for income for the whole of the year. The venues have been closed for the 9 months, and we expect them to be closed for the remaining 3 months of the year. And that's the total value of income that we would have been generating, which covers our costs. So basically, we've had all our costs refunded. We haven't furloughed the staff. They have been reused for other services, but there's been no furloughing of staff. In terms of the page 8, the question around children residential care, yes, there's an additional 2 placements, just over 2 additional placements that have happened all year. You will note when we come to the budget report later on today's agenda, we've actually increased the budget by 2. Because we have got 11 children now in placement, and that's what we're expecting it to have for some time. So that's the answer in terms of that one. In terms of page 9 around the hourly rate, yes, the Welsh Government have made various packages of additional funding available to residential care, home care, and supporting people at home. And in terms of the home care, the £1 is paid to the external providers, but the council actually gets reimbursed the £1 for both external and internal providers. So the in-house service also benefits from the £1 back from the Welsh Government. And in terms of the communications and marketing, I think the Welsh Government have provided a significant amount of financial support, as the report shows. But they have, in some instances, said that they are not covering all the costs, and they think that some of the base budgets of the councils, along with its overall contingencies and reserves, should contribute a little bit. And that's why I think they've limited the contributions on communications and marketing and IT equipment in particular.
Can I come back, Chair, please?
Briefly, please.
Yeah, very briefly. That wasn't actually the question I asked on page 8. I can see that we've provided for these 2 extra places, but what I was asking was, are we anticipating that we will need more than these 2 extra places, and have we factored that in to the monies we're setting to one side? Thanks.
Okay, I see Mr. Jarrett's got his hand up. Is it on this point, Mr. Jarrett?
Yes, absolutely, Chair. Yeah, it's about children's residential care.
Okay, do you want to come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much for that, Councillor Purcell. No, we're not anticipating additional residential care need over and above the 11, although that's difficult to assess going forward. We do think we're probably going to have more pressure on our looked after children system as a result of all of the pressures that COVID brings. But we think that we can deal with that within our foster care placements. So most additional care places will be in foster care, not in residential care. That's our best assessment at this time.
Thank you very much for that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is Councillor Sandra Miller, please.
Thank you, Chair. On page 9, we have the community care management, 78k underspend, and that's down to the deprivation of liberty assessments. Now, when I finished work, which was a little while ago, you know, there was a huge rise in applications for deprivation of liberty. Have the rules changed, and are we missing anybody in that context? Because obviously deprivation of liberty is a very important topic.
Okay, Mr. Jarrett, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No, we're not missing anyone as far as I'm aware, Councillor Miller. The number of deprivation of liberty assessments that we're doing has been impacted by COVID, though, and that probably reflects the underspend that we're seeing at the moment. I would need to go back and have a check to make sure that we haven't got a significant waiting list, and I'm happy to give you that detail outside of this meeting if that's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other councillors got any questions, please, on this item? No, I don't see any further indications. In respect to this item, the recommendations are on page 20 to go to Cabinet. Are we all happy with the recommendations as they stand? See a number of nodding heads. Anybody not happy? No. Could I have a proposal for recommendations, please?
Move the recommendation, Chair.
I second the recommendation, Chair.
Lovely, thanks. Those recommendations go to Cabinet as they are. And next item then we decided to scrutinise was item 6 on the agenda, the draft budget. Before we go further with this, we welcome the report. The members do have questions on this item. However, it is noted that the majority of scrutiny on this item will take place in each of the individual scrutiny committees to enable them to scrutinise their own areas of work in detail. So, do officers have any comments they would like to make before I go to questions? Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I just wanted to highlight that this is the draft budget proposals for 21-22, and as you mentioned, it's subject to Cabinet approval to commence consultation following today's meeting to the 12th of February. Members will note that the proposals included within the report take account of the provisional local government settlement announced by the Welsh Government just as we were leading up to Christmas. And the report proposes draft proposals to set a budget of £317 million, which is inclusive of using 3.1 million reserves, going to consult on a 3.75% council tax increase, and investment proposals of about £7.7 million on top of inflation, mainly to deliver on demand, increase in demand for services for the next financial year. And I think that there will be further work needed then in respect of 22-23 financial years and beyond, once COVID is no longer a challenge for us, hopefully mid-year coming up, and the UK government have carried out their spending review, giving indicative funding levels into subsequent financial years. So hopefully that's an initial overview for members, and happy to take questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Jenkins. And I say this is just to get permission, if you like, for us to go for consultation on the budget. In pre-scrutiny, we had a number of indications. Well, two persons indicated. First one's Councillor Alan Llewellyn. Any questions, please, Alan?
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. And I obviously take the point that this is the start of the consultation and that there'll be lots of detailed discussions in the individual scrutiny meetings. I'm just following up so we'll try and keep it brief, but I'm following up the discussions at last week's budget seminar. And I also appreciate the figures provided by Mr. Jenkins in response to my advance questions. So firstly, I welcome that steps have been taken by the Welsh Government ministers to recognise the essential role of local authorities during the pandemic period. But obviously the investment in local services needs to continue beyond this immediate emergency to help all our communities recover from 10 years or more of austerity and cuts. And in looking at the background information, I'd like to ask, in the provisional settlement, Neath Talbot is 6 out of 22 local authorities in terms of revised budget share from the Welsh Government. But we continually have either the second or third highest council tax rates in Wales, with 3.75% of increases proposed again for the next year. So I'd like to ask Mr. Jenkins, from the contacts that responses that he's had from the Welsh Government, how is that particular situation being justified by Welsh Government? Also, we've heard from 1996, and this is now a quarter of a century ago, that the formula from local government reorganisation has disadvantaged Neath Talbot. Yet in this settlement, we say again that the standard spending assessment doesn't meet our needs. And the same is actually true of many other local authorities. So how can we influence Welsh Government to change the standard spending assessment as part of the final settlement? And the second point that I have is that can the Director of Finance give a comment about the pattern reserves reflected in the figures that he provided to me this morning? And I'm more than happy for those figures to be circulated. Obviously, I know the Chair and the Vice Chair have had I've had a copy, and the cabinet member for finance. So I'm more than happy for those to be circulated. And then the final question that I have, which I put in advance, I don't think I've had a reply to this one so far, but I can't actually access my emails at the moment. But and I'm making this point as an advocate of local government. It's not just the issue of what we think will be cut from a budget, or what the balancing figure has to be in council tax, but it's also that we need to share a vision of what services are provided by local councils, so that people understand the role that, you know, collectively that we play as an authority. Therefore, I was asking, what is the actual wording of the consultation that is going out to the public to respond? Obviously, we want to encourage people to respond, but we want them to understand what the role of local authorities are. So I don't know if there's been a reply yet on what the actual wording. You know, we've been asked to approve going to consultation. I'd like to know what the wording of the consultation is. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. Jenkins, please.
Thank you, Chair, and Councillor Llewellyn. In terms of council tax and the provisional settlement, yes, the Welsh Government have given a general settlement increase of 3.8% across the whole of Wales. Neath Talbot's increase is better than the average, and sixth best at 4.2%. As I mentioned in the seminar last week, one of the major drivers of the formula to distribute the 4.6 billion across all 22 local authorities in Wales is population. Population in Neath Talbot has slightly improved compared to the all Wales position, and that's one of the major changes why some local authorities have benefited more than others. Newport at the top, going down towards Ceredigion, and others towards the bottom of the allocation of funding. How can we influence the Welsh Government by the final settlement? Well, if as a treasurer, I want to make sure that I don't have too much fluctuations between now and the final settlement, but I certainly would like to have better influence and opportunities to get better resources in future years. Because if there's a lot of churn between now and March the 2nd, when the final announcement is due, there could be a lot of swings in the budgeting, and that is not something that would be good for any council or the taxpayers or anybody else, I would suggest at this point in time, Chair. So I think the issue there is more about how can we look at influencing future years. I think the population is a major driver of everybody's costs, but it isn't always an increase in one person or 1,000 people will have a different influence on the small a local authority with smaller population compared to a local authority with larger population. So there's in reality perhaps a step change somewhere in the system that needs to take place within the arrangements. I think that those type of issues for discussion and for lobbying the Welsh Government in future years is the way forward, as opposed to between now and the final settlement for this year. In terms of reserves, yes, Councillor Llewellyn asked for information on reserves earlier, and the information that I provided was that in terms of 2018-19, at the end of March 2018-19, we had £20.9 million in general reserves, which was equivalent to 7.4% of our budget. In 2019-20, at the end of last financial year, our reserves stood at 19.9 million, which was 6.9% of our budget. The forecast at the end of this financial year because it has been impacted by COVID and an use of £1.65 million projected at the beginning of the year is predicted to be 14.6 million, which is 4.8%. And then as part of this draft budget for 21-22, which will be going out to consultation following a cabinet later on. I'm predicting that the closing general reserves in March 22 will be in the order of £12 million or 3.8% of our budget requirement. And that's after using the 3.1 million set out in this report. So you'll see that some of the prudent measures that we have adopted in recent years, plus the significant council tax collection rates that we've achieved. We've been achieving best part of 97.9 to 98% collection rate in previous years, has boosted the amount of monies that were held in the general reserves at the end of the year. And that has helped us to put us in a much better position this year now to be able to propose as part of this draft budget to use a further 3.1 million for next year to enable that to buy some time to get into a better position for 22-23 when further considerations around what is affordable, what's the council priorities and everything else is taken into account in its budget setting process. And in terms of the last question that Councillor Llewellyn asked about in terms of the consultation document, certainly I will share it with him after this meeting, but it will be loaded onto the council website as well. The type of issues that it is going to raise, it's a council budget setting process for 21-22 questionnaire. It confirms that the council's gross investment in council services is about £445 million, but we've got this £3.2 million gap in order to face the budget next year, and that's clear from the report that members have got. It references and links the questionnaire to the to that report, to the committee report of today, and highlights the fact that the council is consulting on using 3.1 million of general reserves, an increase in council tax of 3.75%, and using the measures of savings and income generation already approved by council last year of £135,000. It will then go and give an indication of what a 3.75% increase in council tax is, asking people for their views around that. It explains general reserves and tries to give an example of what we mean by general reserves and the potential use of 3.1 million there. It also then goes on to link it to can you suggest any other ways that the council could income generate or save money? Are there any services that that individuals think that we should protect, reduce, stop altogether, along with some other questions about the investments that we are making, the £7.7 million worth investments in there. Do people agree with them? But certainly I will share the documentation with members after the meeting, but that's the aim of the consultation. And consultation this year, as members will note, will be slightly different because of COVID. We would normally put things in the library and put that out in various community hubs. That isn't really feasible this year, so we will be encouraging through social media, through other measures for people to consult and respond to this consultation between now and the end of the 12th of February.
Okay. Thanks for that. Okay, a couple more indications. Okay, thanks. Councillor Steve Hunt, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm hoping not to repeat any of Councillor Llewellyn's questions, although some of them overlapped in what I was going to say today. But can I firstly say that I'm not speaking as the leader of the Independent and Democratic group today, but as myself as an independent councillor. I fully appreciate that we are only here today to agree the recommendations to go out to consultation and these budget proposals, of which I fully support, to go to consultation today. I once more would like to thank Howell Jenkins and his team and everyone else involved in the producing of the documentation and proposals that we recently heard in the seminar as well, and giving the opportunity to all our constituents to be able to scrutinise them and feed into the consultation process in the coming weeks and months with their own views that the council will consider when setting the budget, I'm sure. Howell delivered recently through the budget seminar where questions and answers, a lot of the budget proposals were asked, and I'm not going to repeat any of those this afternoon. I'm sure, though, through the consultation process, I will, like other councillors and the public, will have the opportunity to do this going forward. Can I make a personal plea to the leader, cabinet members and officers at the start of this process? I am not naive enough to not understand that the leader, with his cabinet, Labour group and officers, will ultimately set the budget, and in particular, the council tax level. I would like to ask him today to reconsider the proposed 3.75 council tax rise after the consultation process has concluded, when he and his cabinet colleagues will have the thoughts of the constituents across the whole of Neath Talbot County Borough Council, taking into account that 2020 has been one of the worst years in living memory, with the coronavirus COVID-19 doing so much damage. Lots of people have lost loved ones, friends and colleagues. Domestic abuse to children has been on the increase. Lots of people were furloughed, jobs lost, businesses lost. And the full impact of this virus as to mental health and the economy will not be realised for many years to come. So my simple plea today, Chairman, is for the leader, cabinet and others to consider all these aspects and do their very best to bring down the council tax rise thus proposed to a level that can be managed without affecting our services and the running of this council going forward, and understandably to keep healthy reserves, because we are certainly not out of the woods just yet with the coronavirus pandemic. Okay. Finally, Chair, I noticed the consultation period, if passed today, would start from the end of today's meeting until the 12th of February 2021. And I would urge all members to use their social media presence and any other means to get all our constituents involved in this exercise, so that the leader and cabinet have a better understanding from all our constituents on their views when they make their final decisions to put before us all in March, and that's the point when Alan brought up the consultation. I has answered me in the makeup of it, because sometimes I think the consultation, the way it's set out and delivered, can sort of not allow our constituents to have their view. So I would also say, Chair, I'm sure Rob would agree that if they put something on a piece of paper, irrespective of, or an email, irrespective of the format of the consultation, those points would also be listened to if they cannot fulfill the general consultation document process. So thank you, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Leader, you got your hand up, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just to come back, as Councillor Hunt has directly asked me to respond to his request. unfortunately, I don't have the luxury to disassociate myself with being the leader. I am the leader, and I'm always the leader of the Labour group. So therefore, when I speak, I do have to speak as the leader. Every year we go through the scenario and when it comes to council, and I make this plea today to both opposition parties. You are just as much a part of setting the budget as we are with the ruling party. Please get involved. Please submit your information in relation to suggestions and ideas that you have in relation to altering, changing or improving the budget. And I make this plea every year since I've been a leader. Get involved in the consultation process. Make sure your members get involved in the consultation process. Put it up on your social media website. Circulate it amongst your friends on Facebook so it gets as wide a publicity as possible. I don't need to tell you for the past 2 years, the past 3 years, 1 year we had over 1,000 replies, unheard of and unprecedented, but that was predominantly to do with the libraries. The most average we normally get is about 100, 150, no more than 200 responses on the budget. Please note that we're going out to consultation on 3.75, which is lower than what we set the council tax for this current year. And we are doing our utmost in relation to appreciating those businesses, those people and those that are suffering through COVID. £32 million already been paid out by this council in relation to business grants since COVID hit. That's just one example of how efficient we are on supporting our communities. So I endorse what's been said, but my plea back to you is, if you can find better things that we can save, and if you notice, there's no cuts to the budget this year. We're in fact improving settlements within individual departments. And this is the first time that we've taken a significant amount of money out of the reserves in order to compensate for the, as Alan says, and I support, unjust settlements that we've been having since 1996. But that was well beyond anyone's responsibility that currently sits in this council. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Leader. I got 2 further indications. Councillor Sonia Reynolds, please.
Thanks, Chair. I wanted just to add my thanks to Hal and the team for the work done in very short time scale and difficult conditions this year to produce this budget. As the leaders just said, that there are no cuts, and we're going to need more money to look after those who are suffering the impact of austerity. So we're going to need the services working properly and operating. Can Hal please clarify for me in terms of reserves? We'll be down to 14.6 projected at the end of this financial year. And we're looking at, with the extra money we will need to take out, 12 million, he was saying, next year. What's that in terms of implications for the amounts we should be keeping in reserve? And will there be any comeback going below that amount if that's the case? Thank you.
Mr. Jenkins, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Yes, as I responded to the previous question, the predicted reserves at the end of this year is 14.6 million. That's for 4.8%. But should the Welsh Government, should we actually get additional income loss refunds from the Welsh Government, then hopefully that will slightly improve, will be slightly better off than that position. Because we have just been asked last week to prepare a loss of income claim for the quarter ended at the end of December, and the indications are that there will probably be a further claim that we will be able to make for this coming quarter during February for this period to the end of March. So I'm hoping that, even though I'm currently predicting the 14.6, I'm hoping that the Welsh Government will make good some of the variances and predicted loss figures that were mentioned in the previous report considered by the Scrutiny Committee earlier this afternoon. And then that's 4.8% of our current budget. yes, the indications are that we are consulting on a 3.1 additional pull for next year. And that's why I think it'll be around the £12 million, or hopefully better off by March 22. Yes, the external auditor will want to see what plans we have got to actually have sustainable budgets going forward from 22-23. But given the current scenario where the UK government hasn't actually announced its spending review for funding levels beyond 22, that information will hopefully become available late summer, early autumn, and there will be work carried out by your officers, by your cabinet over the summer to try and develop strategies to have balanced budgets from 22-23 onwards. But I am not expecting any challenges from the auditors based on the proposals that we are putting in front of Cabinet today and the public as part of this consultation process.
Okay, thanks
If
for
I
that.
may, Chair.
Yeah.
Can you confirm, though, that that is dropping well below what we should be keeping as a reserve?
I think that I wouldn't be putting forward a proposal that allows you to go below the minimum level. I think that other councils are running probably at general reserves slightly lower than Neath Talbot. Previously, the external auditors and others have said anywhere in the region of 3 to 5% is appropriate for councils to have, and at around 3.8% predicted by the end of next year, I think that that means that we are within that sort of level. But it does mean that there will need to be additional work now for 22-23, because you can't continue to take £3.1 million of reserves out of general reserves year on year. So that's why I'm saying it's more of an issue to get a sustainable balanced budget from 22 onwards.
Okay, thanks for that. And last indication I got is from Councillor Suzanne Paddison, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Obviously, we've seen this last week when we had our budget seminar, and I made a few comments there, which I am going to repeat now because this is a public meeting. I'm very pleased with the work of all our corporate directors, and especially Howell, who have put together this proposed budget to go out to consultation. It reflects our priorities as a council, and if you go through, although we didn't scrutinise in this meeting, the capital budget that we are spending money on, the future regeneration of Neath Talbot is looking, very good. It's under your stewardship, Howell, and I applaud the fact that we've arrived at this situation because of the advice we've heeded in the past. And I'm more than happy to go with the recommendations from yourself and other directors with this that comprises this budget. I know people will have differences of opinion, but in the round, this is an excellent budget, and I commend it to go to Cabinet to allow the people of Neath Talbot to have their say. I'm hoping then that they will agree with us and that this is a good rounded budget looking after their welfare. So one more thing, I would also like to commend Councillor Clement Williams, because she has built up relationships within the ministers in Cardiff, and I'm sure that if there was any lobbying that could have been done, she would have done it. So thank you, and I would recommend this to Cabinet. Thank you.
Okay, Leader, you got your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was one thing that I forgot to address with Councillor Hunt's questions about consultation. the whole purpose of this council since I've been leader is to listen to consultation, and we haven't made or do not make any predetermined decisions in relation to anything that we go out and consult on. We listen to the public, and that has been exemplified on several occasions, including council tax, where we have listened to what people have said in the past. So this consultation is not predetermined. We will listen to the views of our constituents, and then we will make an informed decision as to what we think is right. So I just wanted to clarify that point as well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. I see no other indications, and before we go to the recommendation, I'd like to thank Howell and all his staff for the hard work. With all the cuts we've had over the last few years, I think you work miracles, so
yes.
Well done all. Okay, in respect to this item, the recommendation there is on page 59. Are we happy for that to go to Cabinet as it stands, please?
I move, Chair.
Okay. Anybody not happy? Say, I've had a proposer. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second, Chair.
Okay, that goes to Cabinet as it stands. One item on the scrutiny agenda is the forward work programme. I say we're not scrutinising it, but just to mention, if any scrutiny members want any items scrutinised, to bring those forward to myself or to the Democratic Services officers, and we look to put them on the future agenda. Item 7, we're not scrutinising. Item 8, urgent items. Charlotte, there are no urgent items?
Yes, that's right, Chair. We have no urgent items for today.
Okay, thanks for that. And then item 9, access to meetings. And I say for that, it's to resolve to exclude the public for the following items pursuant to Regulation 4(3) and 5 of Statutory Instrument 2001 number 2290 and the relevant exempt paragraphs of Part 4 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972. So again, it's to go into private. Can I please have a proposer and seconder to move into private, please?
Move, Chair.
Seconder?
I'll second, Chair.
Thanks for that. Okay, at this point in the meeting, I would like to thank any members of the public and press for joining us this afternoon. But please can I ask that you now leave the meeting, and can I also ask that the recording is stopped, please?